Hello, everyone.
When I discovered my wife's betrayal about 7 months ago, I went through every possible emotion. The heartbreak was unbearable, denial, pain, and every attempt I made to win her back only pushed me deeper into depression. I was a wreck, struggling through each day, completely lost. Despite how broken I was, I never confronted her directly. Looking back, she must have sensed that I knew. I mean, there's no way she could have missed the signs. But she didn't care. Or maybe she just assumed I wouldn't do anything about it. I'll never know for sure. Then, about 2 or 3 months ago, I reached a breaking point. I was done with her, done with the sham we called a marriage. Something inside me just shut off, and I stopped caring entirely. At that moment, I decided to mentally check out of the relationship. I started putting plans in place for the divorce, visualizing what life might look like on the other side of this mess. To keep my distance, I stayed out of the house as much as possible and avoided her completely. If she did ask me a question, I'd give the shortest answers possible: yes, no, maybe, or I don't know. I even left invoices from my divorce lawyer lying around in plain sight. She had to have known that I was getting ready to end things. Even the kids picked up on it, asking me if we were getting divorced. I had to sit them down and give them that speech every parent dreads, the one about how it's not their fault, how sometimes adults just can't stay together. My wife was in the room when I explained this to the kids. She didn't say a word, didn't offer any argument, nothing. Her silence felt like permission, and I took it as her acknowledgement that it was time to let go. Then, a few days ago, something unexpected happened. I ran into an old friend from school, a girl named Rachel. Rachel and I always had this spark, this undeniable chemistry, back before I'd even met my wife. We'd always flirted a little, shared a few laughs, but nothing ever came of it. Her family moved away before I could work up the nerve to do anything about it. I'll admit, I regretted not asking her out for a long time. Seeing Rachel again was like stepping back in time. The tension between us was still there, maybe even stronger than I remembered. Talking to her felt natural, effortless. And then, out of nowhere, she asked me out. I was surprised, but I explained my current situation with my soon-to-be ex-wife and mentioned that I didn't want to date until I was officially separated. Cheating has never been my thing. Rachel respected that. She gave me her number and told me to call her as soon as I was done with everything I needed to do. She said she'd never married and seemed genuinely excited to reconnect. To be honest, I felt the same way. Meeting Rachel sparked something in me. It was the final push I needed to officially confront my wife and start the process. I went home that night, feeling lighter than I had in months. I sat down, waiting for her to join me, grinning like I'd finally found the way forward. When she sat across from me, I got straight to the point. "I've known about your affair for a while now," I said, keeping my tone calm. "I figured you knew that I knew, especially since I've been so distant these last few months. I thought you'd be happy to move on without the guilt. It's obvious he's more important to you than we are." I went on, explaining how I was ready to move forward and start dating, that I wanted to get on with my life. Then I said, "So, all things considered, it's time for us to get divorced. Don't you agree?" Her reaction shocked me. Instead of relief, she crumbled, crying with this soul-wrenching sound I'd never heard before. She wasn't just crying. She was begging, making excuses, pleading for a second chance. She kept saying the affair didn't mean anything, and that we could fix things with counseling. I was taken aback. I honestly thought she'd be happy to go off and be with this other guy. After all, she'd been willing to throw away everything we'd built. I told her that if she wanted to fix things, the time to do that was 7 months ago, before she started an affair. I didn't even know we had problems, because she never spoke to me about anything. I wasn't a mind reader, and if something was bothering her, she never gave me the chance to fix it. I calmly laid it all out. There was no way to undo what she'd done, no way to erase the hurt she'd caused me over those 7 months. At this point, I didn't just feel indifferent. I actually resented her. The only reason I was keeping things civil was for our kids. I looked her in the eye and told her, "If you ever cared about me, you wouldn't have put me through this. You wouldn't have hurt me like this." It's been 3 days since I had that intense conversation with my soon-to-be ex-wife, and let's just say, sleep has been elusive. I crashed last night, right at my computer, and woke up with a keyboard imprint on my face. Not exactly the kind of beauty sleep I'd hoped for. But weirdly enough, it left me with a clearer mind. I realized I needed to put everything into perspective. So, I started jotting down lists on the walls. One for the kids, another on how to handle my interactions with her, and even one for Rachel, the woman who recently re-entered my life. I had titles like kids, marriage, questions to ask my wife, and Rachel. My goal was simple: to figure out what principles mattered most to me moving forward and set a course for a life that actually made sense. As I went through each point, I evaluated whether it was achievable and, if so, what a meaningful result would look like. When it came to the kids, there was no question. They're my top priority. I resolved to help them process all of this by investing more time in family counseling and one-on-one support. I drown them in love, bring our extended family into the mix, and keep their teachers and coaches aware so that they'd be surrounded by a strong support system wherever they turned. I even went and got myself an STI test, and while I was at it, I booked a DNA test for the kids. Just the thought that they might not be mine rattles me, but if that's the case, I'd rather know now. It's about doing right by them, ensuring they have any medical history they might need and that they know where they come from. It's all for them, no matter the outcome. And, if they are mine, well, maybe I can finally let go of that lingering worry. After meeting with their therapist, I joined the kids and carefully explained everything, making it clear they could come to me with anything. I wanted them to know that no matter what, I am and will always be their dad. When I finally focused on my marriage, I reached a hard truth. Trust was shattered, and I could never see my wife the same way. The affair killed a part of me, the part that used to light up when I thought of her. That love had been a big part of my life, but it's gone now, replaced by this painful weight. Divorce is the only way forward, and the sooner we move on, the better. And then, there was Rachel. I had a lot on my mind, mostly thanks to feedback from Reddit. Was it really a good idea to jump into something new when my life was still a complete mess? Maybe bringing her into this storm wasn't fair. Rachel disagreed, though. She told me that life's always messy, and that maybe it's worth finding out how we handle it together. I discovered something else, too. Rachel was once engaged, but her fiancé died in a tragic accident at work almost 5 years ago. She had tried dating since, but she hadn't found a real connection, until now. To her, life is too short not to take risks when something real comes along. I shared my feelings with her, telling her I wouldn't feel right starting anything until the divorce was final. She completely respected that. She also understood when I pointed out that if we rushed into things, people might judge her as the other woman, something neither of us wanted. We agreed to keep things private until everything is officially over. This realization hit me hard. Even talking to her felt like an emotional affair, so I decided not to contact her again until my divorce was legally sorted. In planning my next talk with my wife, I wrote down principles for who I wanted to be in this moment. I aimed to be the man I was before everything fell apart, calm, honest, and focused on doing what's best for our kids. I prepared questions to try and understand her reasons, but I wasn't going to deceive her or give false hope. There would be no ploys to gain an advantage in the divorce. I'd be fair, dividing assets equally and ensuring 50-50 custody. Despite her actions, I intended to keep things just. I realized something crucial as I prepared to confront her again. I had to be someone I could look back on without regret. I didn't want to turn into the kind of person I now saw her as. Yes, I resented her for what she did to me, to us, and to our family. But I also had to remember the good memories we shared, and more importantly, I had to stay grounded for our children's sake. Carrying bitterness in my heart wasn't going to help anyone. Eventually, I'd need to forgive her, not for her sake, but so I could finally move on. Looking back, up until she cheated, I genuinely believed we had a great marriage. We were close, shared everything, and rarely argued. We sacrificed for each other without hesitation, and I trusted her completely, until the day I learned about her infidelity. Since then, all that openness and trust felt like a lie, and I knew there was no going back. When Saturday arrived, I went to meet her. Her sister had warned me she was in rough shape, and that was no exaggeration. She looked shattered, red eyes, swollen face, hair disheveled. She seemed smaller, like a ghost of the person I used to know. Her hands shook as she sat down, visibly terrified. But I was calm. I felt a strange pity for her, not as a spouse, but like watching a tragic character in a movie. It dawned on me then that I really didn't love her anymore. I sat, letting her collect herself, watching her attempt to speak and then break down in tears. The tears weren't an act. I'd seen her cry before, but nothing like this. This was raw, painful sobbing, the kind you can't fake. When she finally began to talk, it all spilled out. She apologized repeatedly, her words barely coherent, but she never once tried to blame me or make excuses. What I learned next shocked me. Her sister had warned her about this very outcome. A year ago, her sister's own engagement had ended over her own infidelity, which had apparently triggered a midlife crisis for my wife. She began obsessing over the idea of cheating, and when she developed a crush on another guy, she convinced herself that she deserved it. Somehow, she managed to rationalize that I would even approve of it if I knew how happy she felt. She genuinely believed the affair was harmless, that no one would ever get hurt, and that life would go back to normal afterward. Only when I started pulling away did she realize something was wrong. She confessed that she'd ended things with her affair partner about a month and a half ago, right around the time she noticed me checking out emotionally. She'd been trying to get us back to where we were, hoping we could rebuild our life together. But when I looked her in the eye and finally told her how I felt, it hit her hard. She knew this was probably the end. I pressed her with questions, especially about what made her think she had the right to do this to us, to our kids. But deep down, I knew I'd never get a satisfactory answer, because there is no justification for cheating. Still, in a strange way, I felt a sense of closure. I was able to tell her how deeply she had hurt me, how her actions had ripped apart everything we'd built. I made her understand that our marriage was broken, and that our children would now grow up in a divided family. This gave me a surprising sense of peace. She prepared for this, reading up on how to fix a marriage after infidelity. She had a detailed confession and timeline written up and handed it over to me. I didn't read it. I gave it straight to my lawyer. She begged for another chance, claiming she'd do anything, but I told her I didn't believe her. When she asked what she could do to make things right, I simply said, "You broke it, and if you don't know how to fix it, then how do you expect me to?" After some back and forth, she even admitted that if she were in my shoes, she probably wouldn't forgive me either. When I told her I'd taken an STI test and planned to get a DNA test for the kids, she completely broke down. She insisted that this was her only affair, but even she acknowledged that if she were in my position, she'd do the same. Then, I asked her if the affair partner's wife knew. She didn't know. When I suggested she should tell her, she asked if I'd consider reconciliation if she did. I told her no, but added that it would help her regain a sliver of respect in my eyes. She agreed to inform his wife, to go to HR, and to confess everything. Toward the end of our conversation, she even offered me a one-sided open marriage, full access to her phone, 24/7 tracking, anything I wanted to keep her in my life. I told her I'd spoken with Rachel and that I was waiting because I didn't want to cheat. I explained that I didn't believe in open relationships and had no desire to hurt anyone else the way she'd hurt me. I didn't want to be a jailer, constantly monitoring her every move. That's no foundation for a healthy relationship. I told her straight, intimacy without a genuine connection has no meaning for me. Mechanical sex, just for the sake of it, holds no value. If all I need is a release, I can handle that on my own. I don't need a partner for that. By this point, we were all drained. We'd been talking for over 5 hours, and my wife had been crying almost the entire time, swinging between desperation and despair. There was nothing left to discuss. Everything had been said. I looked at her and told her, as clearly as I could, that the love I once felt for her was gone. I didn't recognize who she had become. Our family had been destroyed by her choices, and there was no going back. I made it clear that this was the end, that I'd already filed for divorce, and that nothing could undo the damage. The only way to have saved us would have been to never start the affair in the first place. I wasn't interested in reconciling, and I didn't want any more pain. I suggested we go no contact for a while, to give ourselves some space. I also mentioned that I'd be open to family therapy to help us co-parent, but beyond that, I had no desire to see her. It was painful to say this, especially as she broke down, crying no, no, no over and over. When I stood up to leave, she started sobbing uncontrollably, and then, out of nowhere, she had a massive nosebleed. She reached out toward me, but then she collapsed. I managed to catch her just before she hit the floor, and I drove her and her sister to the ER. I stayed long enough to know she'd be okay, but that was it. I couldn't handle more than that. Last night and today, she's been calling everyone, confessing what she did. Early this morning, I got a call from the wife of her affair partner. She needed confirmation that what my wife had told her was true. I sent over copies of some of the evidence I'd gathered, and just a little while ago, I heard she kicked her husband out. She wants to meet up and go through the rest of the proof I have. Apparently, she'd had suspicions but never had anything concrete to go on. She asked if we could talk right away, even if just over the phone, but I honestly didn't feel ready for that. I told her maybe later. I won't lie, I'm struggling. I feel like a mess, unable to sleep, and cracks are starting to show in my resolve. I keep telling myself to stay strong, but it's harder than I imagined. The guilt gnaws at me, like maybe I should have done more to keep us all from getting to this point. But what could I have done? Why do I feel responsible for fixing something I didn't break? Her friends and even some of her relatives have been calling, cursing me out for not giving her a second chance. They keep saying I should forgive and try again. But honestly, dragging this out would only mean prolonging the pain. Better to end it now, so we can all begin to heal and rebuild. So, here I am. No grand revenge, no peace, no sense of closure, just more pain for everyone involved. My mind is in a dark place, and to be honest, I'm not even sure what to do next. What do you think about this story? Write in comments. If you don't follow our channel Cheating Room, you will probably never hear from us again. If you are subscribed, congratulations, you will not miss any exciting story. Thank you for listening to this shocking story with us. See you again.
Bye bye.